This is the Intellectual Saviors of Wrestling. We are your hosts, the Master of the Brain Damage,
Martin.
and the one and only Sam H. And this is episode 4 of The Finishing Touch, looking at iconic matches in WWE history. And today we go back to what people consider to be the first step on Stone Cold's way to the top. WrestleMania 13, 1997. The submission match between Bret Hart and Steve Austin, with Ken Shamrock as the special guest referee.
How can we forget Ken Shamrock?
Yeah.
The world's most dangerous man. Now, where do you start with this match? I mean, on top of it being an iconic classic, some people in the past have turned around and said this was one of the defining moments and the start of the Attitude Era as well.
Yeah. Wow. This was a story that was months in the making. Austin and Bret fought at Survivor Series of 96. And Bret got quite a, well, some would say lucky win. It was quite a decent pinfall, mind you. If you remember, Austin had him in the $1 Million Dream. And then Bret ran up the top rope and flipped over.
Wow.
And that was the way the pinfall happened. So Austin sort of went on a mission to beat Bret. And that was months culminating in the WrestleMania 13 match.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, Austin had been generating a hell of a lot of publicity and getting over with the crowd ever since his iconic victory at King of the Ring the previous year. So I can't quite remember if he was sort of not quite technically classed as a face at that point or not.
No, I think at the time he was still considered a bad guy because that was where the original double turn happened.
Yeah, because obviously at the time Bret was very much over with the crowd still. They all loved him. And yeah.
And it's worth mentioning, at this point in time, WWE's ratings were not that great. WCW had an edgier product, more mature storylines, and they were killing the WWE in the ratings.
Yeah, and this event, or more specifically, this match, well and truly changed a turning point.
Yeah, I think this was the turning point.
Yeah, it's a hell of a match, and just two guys just going at it, trying to beat the hell out of one another.
Yeah, I mean, this match was technically sound, as you'd expect from these two.
Yeah, I mean, Bret Hart's one of the greatest technicians of wrestling ever.
I mean, there were so many decent moments in this match. I think Austin took a pretty bad shot to the head with a ring bell at one point.
Yeah.
Which was the one that cut him.
Yeah. Yeah, this was back when we didn't have to put up with I say put up with, but there's frustrating moments, shall we say, with the recent product we're getting at the minute. But back then it was just full frontal, didn't care who they offended.
Yeah, I mean, they got away with everything back then.
Yeah, and at times when you go back and watch it, you forget how much Austin bled in that match. I mean, there were huge stains across that apron.
Yeah, I mean, this was, in WrestleMania terms, this was a pretty forgettable one. So, having a WrestleMania that had an iconic moment was pretty needed.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, let's not forget back then as well, I believe he still got away with doing a simple move like the pile driver.
Yeah, I think it wasn't until later that year, or possibly the year after, that it was banned.
Yeah.
Because if you remember, Owen Hart messed up.
Yeah, well, that match was against Austin as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, SummerSlam, I think, of 97. Yeah, it would have been 97. Because 98 was Highway to Hell.
Yeah. Yeah, so yeah.
But no, as everyone remembers, this was the iconic match where the double turn happened. Bret went in being classed as the good guy. Austin went in being classed as the bad guy. And as the match went on, you could feel the crowds turning.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, obviously, straight from the start, crowd were heavily on Brett picking up the victory, but yeah, the more the match went on, it felt weird and eerie, and you start getting cheers for Austin, and
Yeah.
obviously back then, you're sitting there watching, you think, what the hell's going on here?
And then, but of course, the iconic moment which you're referring to comes towards the end of the match, where Brett gets Austin in the sharpshooter, which back then was a pretty protected submission move. Not many people got out of it.
No.
99% of them tapped.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you had the iconic picture that everyone remembers from this match. You had Austin in the sharpshooter. He's trying to lift himself up off of the mat, and he's just there screaming in pain with blood drawing down his face.
What a moment. I mean, and full credit to him, because the whole thing of that was Austin will not give up. He will not submit.
No.
And he was in that for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't like to put a time on it, but I'd guess it wasn't far off 5-minute mark.
Because he nearly got out of it at one point.
Yeah.
But Brett still had it locked on, and he sort of pulled him back.
Yep. And then, well, we'd like to think all of you have watched that match by now.
I hope so.
Otherwise, what the hell have you been doing the last 15 years?
20 next year.
Yeah, sheesh.
I know.
Yeah. So, yeah, what have you been doing the last 20 years? This was wrestling to a perfection.
Yeah, get off Pornhub and go to the WWE Network and watch WrestleMania 13 just for that match and maybe the Undertaker one.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a hell of a match where both wrestlers just put it on the line, everything on the line. And then, but in the end, as you should know, in the end, Austin passed out from the pain and more than likely the loss of blood.
It was a lot of blood.
And Ken Shamrock rang for the bell.
Yeah, called it off. I mean, what an ending. Austin can say he didn't lose because he didn't tap, but he passed out.
And then we had a bit of a pop for the crowd when Brett decided he wasn't quite done by then. He tried to get a bit more of Austin, and then Ken Shamrock ended up body slamming him onto the mat and basically squaring up to him and saying, "Come on, let's go. You want some? Let's go now." And that got a huge pop from the crowd.
And that was the start of what would consider Bret Hart's only heel work in the WWE.
Which we would later find in the coming months also be towards the end of his career in WWE.
Yeah, and this definitely had long-term ramifications for the company. It cemented Austin as a main event player, which he would go on to use for the next couple of years. And Brett, well, sort of accelerated his last couple of storylines.
Yep, but inevitably, by the end of November that year, he was out of the company and in WCW.
Yeah, we will touch on that in another episode of the Montreal Screwjob. But this was another iconic match in WWE history. I think this shifted the tide in the Monday Night War.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, well, to be fair, by that point, the big names that had gone over to WCW, it got to a stage where they'd been there for so long, and I think the crowd was starting to get a bit bored of it.
Yeah.
And as much as he doesn't like to admit it, I think Eric Bischoff's slightly poor booking didn't help the matter, and obviously him getting these big names into WCW, but then giving them free creativity.
Oh, God. Yeah, I mean, we're going to look at that in another one of our myth-busting series coming up. In one of WCW's events, Sold Out 2000, Jarrett and Hogan argued for creative control, and it ended in a real. Well, no one really know how it ended.
Well, I think in the end that was WCW. Just a big question mark.
Yeah, it got really bad.
What it became, what it could have become.
But no, going back to the subject in hand, we want to know your reactions to this match from WrestleMania 13. Were you in the building in 1997? Did you happen to witness this match? Tell us about the experience. Do you agree with the ending of the match? Was it the right decision to have Austin pass out? Brett win clean? Unclean.
Yeah, I mean, well, at the end of the day, it keeps up the whole persona of Austin being the toughest SOB in the business. Unlike our shoved down our throat golden boy, who's only tapped out twice, but yeah, I mean, to keep up and portray the persona of Austin and how tough he is, I think that was the only route they could have taken, really.
It was definitely one of the most iconic endings of matches I've ever seen.
Yeah, without a doubt. So, wow, I think that about wraps it up for episode 4.
This has been another good one.
Yep.
So, from your host, the master of the brain damage,
I've been Martin.
and the one and only Sam H. We will see you on the next one.
Peace out.